In a small village located in Igbo land of eastern Nigeria, there lived a man named Obinna. He was a humble and hardworking farmer, respected by his peers for his strength and integrity. Obinna's life has once been filled with happiness, alongside his beloved wife, Nneka, and their son, Emeka. But tragedy struck when Nneka fell ill, and despite the best effort of traditional healers, she passed away, leaving behind Obinna and young Emeka. The death of Nneka left a gaping void in Obinna's heart, but it was Emeka who suffered the most. Only 6 years old at the time of the mother's death, Emeka struggled to understand why his mother was no longer there to sing him lullabies or hold him when he was frightened. The days turned into months, and although Obinna tried to fill the role of both father and mother, the demands of his farm left little time for the nurturing Emeka desperately needed. The village elders, noticing Obinna's struggle, advised him to remarry. A man needs a wife, and a boy needs a mother, they said. Reluctantly, and with Emeka's welfare in mind, Obinna agreed. It wasn't long before he met Nwadiogo, a young woman from a neighboring village. She seemed kind and willing, promising Obinna that she would care for Emeka as her own child. Not long after their marriage, Nwadiogo became pregnant, and in the months that followed, she gave birth to a daughter named Ezinne. As Ezinne grew, Nwadiogo's character began to change. Her initial warmth towards Emeka cooled, and she began to resent the boy, particularly because he was the only son of the household. Despite having a healthy and beautiful daughter, the lack of a son of her own ate at Nwadiogo's heart, turning her affection for Emeka into bitterness. Soon, the maltreatment began. While Obinna was away tending to his farm, Nwadiogo took out her frustration on Emeka. She would send him out to fetch water from the stream, far beyond what his small frame could handle, or refuse to give him food when she fed herself and Ezinne. At nights, as the village cricket chirped and the moon bathed the hut in pale light, Emeka would cry himself to sleep, his stomach empty and his heart heavy, wishing his late mom was still alive. "Don't tell your father," Nwadiogo would hiss whenever she looked like he might protest. "If you say a word, I will make things work for you." Terrified of his stepmother's threat, Emeka remained silent. His father, Obinna, was always away, spending long days in the fields, cultivating yams and cassava to support his family. By the time he returned, exhausted from his labor, there was little time for him to notice Emeka's suffering. The boy had learned to hide his bruises, both the physical and emotional. One fateful evening, Obinna returned home earlier than usual. The sky has grown dark too soon, signaling the coming rains, and Obinna decided to call it a day. As he approached the compound, he heard soft sobbing from behind the house. Curious and concerned, he followed the sound and found Emeka kneeling by a small grave under the old Baobab tree, his mother Nneka's grave. Tears streamed down the boy's face as he whispered to the ground, "Mama, I miss you. I don't know how long I can take it." Obinna's heart clenched. He had never seen his son cry like this. "Emeka," he called gently. Startled, Emeka turned to see his father standing there, worry etched into his face. For a moment, the boy hesitated, but seeing the concern in his father's eyes, the dam that had been holding back his pain broke. Between sub, Emeka told his father everything: how Madiogo stabbed him, the constant chores that left him exhausted, and the harsh words that tore at his spirit. Obinna was silent for a long time. After Emeka finished speaking, he fished, clenched, and unclenched as waves of guilt and anger coursed through him. How had he been so blind? How could he have missed the signs of his son's suffering? When Madiogo returned from the market later that evening, carrying a basket of food on her head, Obinna was waiting for her in the compound, his face dark with anger. Madiogo, he began, his voice cold and steady. Emeka has told me everything. You have been mistreating him. Why? Why, Madiogo? Caught off guard, Madiogo dropped her basket, her face flushing with panic. It's not true, she protested, her eyes wide with fear. But Obinna's gaze was unrelenting. He had made up his mind. Madiogo, sensing there was no escape, fell to her knees crying, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt him. I promise I will change. I'll be better. Obinna's heart wavered. He had married Madiogo hoping to build a new family, and Ezinne needed her mother. After a long silence, he finally spoke. You have one last chance. If I hear of this again, you will leave this house. For a time, things improved. Madiogo seemed so softened, and she treated Emeka with more care, though the boy still kept his distance. However, as the months passed, Madiogo's old bitterness resurfaced. She began to resent Emeka's quiet resilience and Obinna's affection for him. Soon, the cruelty returned, subtle at first, but growing with each passing day. Emeka suffered in silence once more, but this time, Obinna was not oblivious. He watched closely, noting the bruises on Emeka's wrist from the heavy bucket. He got a look in his eyes. One afternoon, Obinna came home to find Emeka standing outside, tears streaming down his cheeks, while Ezinne played in the shade of the house. His heart broke once again. That evening, after Madiogo returned from her visit to the market, Obinna sat her down. His voice was firm and final. You have broken your promise, he said. I warned you once. I will not allow my son to suffer any longer. Madiogo pleaded, but her words fell on deaf ears. Obinna had made up his mind. The next day, he returned her bride price, a symbolic and irreversible gesture in their culture. The village elders, who had heard rumors of her treatment of Emeka, supported his decision. Madiogo left, taking Ezinne with her, and Obinna never looked back. From that day forward, Obinna dedicated himself to his son. They lived quietly in their small house, free from the shadows of Madiogo's cruelty. Emeka, no longer afraid or hungry, began to thrive under his father's care. Obinna, though still haunted by the mistakes of the past, found solace in the bond he shared with his son. And so, in the quiet village, under the watchful eye of the Baobab tree, Obinna and Emeka lived in peace, their hearts finally at ease.